Earnestly podcast coming to you on May 6, 2022. How you guys doing? As I said on the last episode, which was audio only at the time, we're gonna try to do this. I'm gonna try to bring an episode in, kind of like a daily thing I used to do back in the day. Try to do this, once, one through Friday. Run down like the topics of the week. Kind of miss doing those things. We'll see if I can keep up doing it. Obviously, the challenge is gonna be make sure I can squeeze out at least 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at a time to come in and record. I would like to do video all the time if possible, but of course my schedule and I got all the priorities here at home, especially to make sure I stay on top of it. So as long as I can do that and can actually stay on top of this, it'd be great. Of course, this podcast, you can subscribe to all podcast catchers on Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, all that. Of course, Earnestly Media, you can follow on YouTube. This video, of course, on YouTube, you can follow as well too. So I'm glad to be in here real quick. So we got a couple things I want to get into. Tom Brady trolling Raiders fans. I want to debunk some stuff on the Miami Heat and the whole attendance thing. Some predictions as we, because tonight there's no playoff games. Last night rather there's no playoff games for the NBA, which is I thought it's a good thing actually. So we'll get some predictions of how we'll look at the next time we do a podcast. How will the playoffs look at as these series all switch locations now. Tulsi Gabbard, I'm a fan, but she's wearing on me a little bit. I'll explain to you why. I'm gonna give up my top 5 comedians of all time, my personal top 5 favorites, and who I believe are the about 5 best comedians in history of comedy. This is coming off the heels of the Dave Chappelle attack that happened at the Hollywood Bowl early in the week, and then Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees announced this week, which I want to touch on in a second. Let's get first the Brady thing. Tom Brady. This episode's called the Brady Confession because. And for the record, I'm really enjoying Tom Brady on social media. It's funny. I love Tom Brady post Bill Belichick, post New England Patriots. He's much more less of a robot now. Like he's much more enjoyable to watch. People who don't like Tom Brady for years have confessed to me they like Tom Brady now because he seems more human and more relatable in some ways. So I don't know what triggered this, but it was a video I saw and it had Justin Bieber of all people asking question. And Tom Brady basically came and said that the Tuck rule, if you guys remember the Tuck rule, the game, the 2001 AFC divisional game, AFC playoff game 2001, which changed the course of history, where it was clearly a fumble, but the referees and the officials in the field ruled it as a incomplete pass, a Tuck rule. Right? Of course, the Patriots went on to win that game, go on to win the Super Bowl that year. Tom Brady was announced a starter. And the rest is history, of course. 6 rings later, So Tom Brady on video says, and kind of coyly says that basically, the Tuck rule might have been a fumble. Basically confessing, now, did he really mean that? I don't know. But basically saying that the Tuck rule was actually, the call was made wrong. And it's funny, and the reason I'm talking about this now, because it's this. Imagine if the Tuck rule was actually called correctly. Imagine if they called it what it should have been, was just a fumble. The Raiders win that game. They probably go on to the Super Bowl. Who knows? That Raider team was pretty stacked with Rich Gannon and those guys. The Patriots, we probably don't even see Tom Brady as a starting quarterback the year after that because Drew Bledsoe had just signed a big contract that same season. Now, he got hurt, obviously, and Brady came in and replaced him, and the rest is history. And as you remember, too, Tom Brady also didn't even start the next game. Tom Brady, if I'm not mistaken, Drew Bledsoe started that AFC title game against Pittsburgh that year. And they made a decision after the Patriots won the Super Bowl against the Rams that same year that Tom Brady would be the starter. They traded Drew Bledsoe, of course, to Buffalo, and the rest is history. But imagine if that game does not play out the way it did. Tom Brady probably does not win back the job. He's probably not the starter because just on the contract alone, Drew Bledsoe was getting paid at the time. Well, he got, if I'm not mistaken, this was the highest paid, biggest contract for a quarterback in history of the league at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And there's no reason at that point the Pats didn't win the Super Bowl, so there's no reason for the Patriots, to continue to make Brady the starter. And not only that, Tom Brady was decent, but he wasn't the Tom Brady that we know now. So there's no reason for Brady to be the starting quarterback beyond that. Drew Bledsoe was still a better quarterback at that time. Okay, so imagine if the game was called the correct way, and that the Tuck rule was the fumble. Pats don't go to the Super Bowl. Pats probably don't win a Super Bowl. Who knows? and the rest is history. Instead, Tom Brady wins 7 Super Bowls of his career, 6 in New England, 1 in Tampa. He's the greatest quarterback in history of the game. I mean, that's not even an argument anymore at this point. I know some people who come on this podcast are going to disagree with that, and that's fine, but they're wrong. But imagine history changing. Imagine that doesn't happen. Imagine it doesn't happen. I mean, it's insane for Brady to sit there and he's trolling. Does Brady really in his heart of hearts really believe the fumble was the fumble? Like it was a fumble? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's a troll job here with Raiders fans. Who knows? But it's kind of cool. But in all, Tom Brady is so much fun now post New England. He's no longer a robot. He's no longer Bill Belichick in that whole factory, the Patriots. I'm not knocking the Patriots factory because it's worked for a long time. It's 2 decades worth of titles and relevancy. But Tom Brady, obviously, he's fun. And him trolling, on this thing on TikTok or it was on TikTok, I believe. Social media, his social media team is fantastic. So Brady trolling Raider fans was fun. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so next topic here I want to touch on real quick. So I scratch off here. So there's a big narrative out there right now, and it's been around for a long time, especially in the last 12 years. Miami Heat fans, Miami Heat and the franchise, and the Heat fans are a bunch of front runners and all that, and basically saying that that they don't deserve anything. And basically, during the game against Philadelphia in game 2, that the fans were very, there was a lot of fans in the arena. There wasn't. There was also, just the volume was low and all that, and no excitement or whatever that may be. So obviously this sparked the debate about Heat fans and front runners and all that. And this is going on since even back to the Big Three era when LeBron and Wade and Bosh played together. And then remember the NBA Finals, of course, nobody in the NBA Finals game 6 when the Heat were down a few points late in the game, and that game 6 that the Spurs blew, that Ray Allen shot, and the fans trying to come back in the building, they couldn't get back in the building, all that, and it set a narrative about Heat fans and about what they are, what they aren't, all that, and basically Heat attendance and all that. And I sat there and said, well, listen, here's the issue. We can sit there and debate about whether or not Heat fans are fickle and fair weather, and that's fine and dandy. But the Miami Heat this year in 2022, and ESPN put up numbers out recently. They track this stuff every year. The Miami Heat were 4th in attendance this year in the NBA. Now, people say, oh, well, this year the Heat are good, number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I get that, yeah. So I went ahead and created a larger sample size. And what I did, though, to kind of make the narrative even more better here and more specific, was like I wanted to show the Heat and where they rank in attendance the last 6 years post LeBron, post Big Three era. Okay, so in 2015, the first year of the Heat without LeBron, they were 6th in attendance in the NBA. Now, real quick, 14, LeBron's last year with the Heat, the Big Three, they're number 4 in attendance in the league. 2015, first year without LeBron, 6th. 2016, 6th. 2017, which is post Wade now, Dwayne Wade's gone. So this is the Hassan Whiteside years. They're 7th in the league, 7th. Okay. 2018, still Hassan Whiteside, Goran Dragic, all that, 6th in the league. 2019, 5th. 2020, before COVID, 4th. So every year they have been in the top 3rd in attendance every year. So we can sit here and make fun of the Heat fans and what they do and don't do and all that, and they come late to games, leave games early and all that. What is true, and the numbers don't lie here, is that the Heat still are one of the best teams in the league when it comes to attendance. They may buy tickets and don't go to the games, but they're still buying the tickets. The Heat are still in the top 3rd in the league in attendance, and I wish we can. I'm not sitting there trying to defend the Heat, but I'm trying to give a better assessment that this is what it is. They are still top 3rd in the league in attendance, and I wish we could stop the narratives about that and Heat fans, because the bottom line is they show up, and they're buying tickets, and Big Harrison's not complaining about it. He's still getting rich, So we should stop all that. Okay, next thing here. So right now, as last night, of course, no games on last night for all 4 series in the NBA, 2 games in already, and we are now moving forward. Game 3 tonight, Philly and Miami, and as well as Phoenix and Dallas, game 3 tonight. So what I want to do here is I'm going to give my predictions right now on each series where they're at right now, And when we come back on Monday to do this podcast, it will be at that time, in my opinion. So, Game 3, Philly and Miami is tonight. Game 4 is Sunday night. I believe will be 3-1 Miami. I have Miami in 5 still. Joel Embiid is not playing Game 3. That's been confirmed now by the Sixers that he's out for Game 3. I say Heat in 5. It could be a sweep. But I'm gonna respect the Sixers here. They've been playing hard, even though the Heat have won both games by double digits. They play hard. The Sixers play hard in moments, and I think maybe you might get one Harden game. We'll see what happens. Might get one Maxey game where Miami might go up the gas a little bit. They tendency to do that once in a while. And Philly's at home, too, so you give them one game. So I'll say the Heat will be up 3-1 on Monday when we do this podcast. Phoenix and Dallas is 2-0 right now. Game 3 is tonight as well, too. Game 4 is also on Sunday. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go ahead. Wow, I want to say 2-2, but Phoenix has been dominant for the most part. Even in game 2 when that game was close, Phoenix has pulled away. I'm gonna say 3-1 Phoenix. I think Dallas will get a game, but I think we'll be 3-1 on Monday morning when we do this podcast. Okay. As for Boston and Milwaukee, back out east now. It is 1-1 now. I think Game 4 is on Monday. Game 3 is on Saturday. So I think we'll be 2-1 Milwaukee when we do this podcast Monday morning. Okay? And then we have the last series, of course. I'm going brain dead here on the last series here. That is, of course, the best series in the second round is Golden State and Memphis. Right now it's 1-1. Game 3 is on Saturday at night. Game 4 is on Monday at night. I'm going to say by the time we get to Monday morning, it will be 2-1 Golden State. Dylan Brooks has been suspended for Game 3. I think that will hurt the team. I know Gary Payton Jr. is out for about 3 weeks, which could be the earliest comeback is probably the NBA Finals. But I think Golden State will find a way to do it. They have enough pieces around them, around Curry and Clay and all those guys. I think they'll figure out a way, and I think they'll win Game 3. Best series in the second round for the record. So that's that. That's my predictions for Monday morning when we get back on the podcast. Now, on Tulsi Gabbard. Everybody knows I'm a fan of Tulsi Gabbard. I think she's, at least for the most part, in the last couple of years, in recent years, she's been, a centrist and all that, and a lot of things I agree with her on policy, some things I disagree, but whatever. I think she's the politician I think I've actually probably sided with the most when it comes to policy. But she's getting a little weird on me now these days and I get why, because she's been pretty much the darling of Fox News. She's the Fox News correspondent now that they consider the lefty, and she's a Democrat for the record. But she's also siding with pretty much every single right-wing leaning rhetoric. Not everyone, but like the things that they're, when it comes to Russia and a couple things of that nature. And she promotes it also on her Instagram, which is fine. I'm okay with open speech, free speech, and I'm okay with having the opinions and all that. But again, what has been a theme I've been saying for a long time in this podcast? Be consistent, And part of the reason I always give Clay Travis crap, and allocate the coverage and all that, and people like that. People I've given Rogan crap to some degree, and some other people, on the right now, it's because they claim to be fair and balanced, but they're not. Tulsi Gabbard is now sort of going into that lane a little bit now, where like all you hear is anti-Biden this, anti-Democrat that. There's no question that she has resentment towards the Democratic Party. The way she was pushed out by Hillary Clinton and a lot of people on the left, in the party itself, especially too. And for the record, I totally agree with her. I totally agree with Tulsi Gabbard. She got treated unfairly in a lot of ways. But that doesn't mean you change the rhetoric because of that. So I feel there's a lot of resentment on her end when it comes to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So, she's been kind of like, this is right-wing darling going on Hannity and going on Tucker Carlson's show all the time and all that. And again, I'm okay with you going out there, but be fair and balanced. All I'm hearing now is anti-Biden this, anti-Democrat, anti-left, and woke, anti-woke this. For example, she commented on the Dave Chappelle thing. The attacker, who came out, the attacker, of course, who came out and rushed him, and she assumes that the guy was a woke guy. Like, we don't even know what this guy's background is, first off. So why are you even assuming that the guy did it because of, he's a woke guy that's against Chappelle's, like, comments about, transgender and all that stuff? We don't know that. That hasn't been officially painted as such yet. Why are you painting a narrative that hasn't been confirmed yet? So, and Tulsi, I like Tulsi Gabbard. I think she has good intentions to some degree, but lately she's been wearing me just a little bit as of late. So, just something to think about. Okay, speaking of comedians, I want to give in lieu of what happened to Chappelle, I want to give up my top 5 comedians list. Here, this is what I'll do here. I'll give you my honorable mentions, but this is actually harder than you thought. And I'm still not even sure if number 5 is what I want. My honorable mentions real quick for top comedians in history of comedy. Papa Francisco, who I've seen live before, is fantastic. Paul Mooney, who passed away last year. I love Paul Mooney. Very underrated still to this day. One of the best writers in history of comedy. Steve Harvey, obviously as I get older, he's someone I appreciate you more. Bernie Mac, of course, didn't get to a lot of his material, but the stuff I've heard, of course, has been fantastic. And Jim Carrey, I love his movies. So, my top 5 comedians of all time. Number 5, Cat Williams. The guy's insane. You haven't seen much in recent years because he's had a lot of issues. I think he's broke now, something like that. But Cat Williams in his heyday back in the 2000s, was fantastic. Was a fire starter, and he was great. He was great. Number 4, Dave Chappelle. Again, this is surprising to a lot of people if you know me, because Dave Chappelle was someone I never really liked his stand up a lot growing up, but I've appreciated in recent years, especially in the last couple of years with his Netflix specials, because I'm learning something from him too as well. I love his TV show, fantastic TV show. But Dave Chappelle is definitely in my top 5 now comedians of all time. When you look at the whole package of what he brought to the table, or brings to the table rather. Number 3, George Carlin. George Carlin, especially now as an adult, his anti-PC stuff, very honest, direct, very much, a voice we can use today, especially, in 2022. George Carlin was fantastic. He was ahead of his time. Number 2, Richard Pryor, of course, the legend, arguably the greatest comedian in the history of the genre. Look at his classic stuff way back when, he was one of a kind. And number 1, of course, my favorite actor of all time, Eddie Murphy. I mean, Eddie Murphy to me has done only 2 major stand-up specials, but Delirious and Raw. But those 2 stand-up specials to me are probably the greatest stand-up specials in the history of comedy. Eddie Murphy is the GOAT in my opinion. So again, number 5, Cat Williams. 4, Dave Chappelle. 3, George Carlin. 2, Richard Pryor. And number 1, Eddie Murphy. All right, finally, before I go, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just announced recently their 2022 class inductees. I'm going to go through the list real quick of the ones that stood out the most. Duran Duran, of course, in. I agree with that. Eminem is in. I agree with that as well, too. Eminem is one of the best. To me, Eminem is probably the best hip-hop, one of the best, not the best hip-hop artists in history of the genre. Eurythmics in. Agree. Dolly Parton, who said that she didn't want to get in, but they've got her in anyway. She's in as well, too. I agree with that. Lionel Richie. This is shocking. I'm surprised he's not in there already. I'm surprised he's not in there already. Lionel Richie is one of my favorite artists in the history of music. How he's not even in the first place is beyond me. I'm glad he's in now, but how he's not in right now is beyond me. Carly Simon, of course, they got that right. Judas Priest. I'm not a big fan of Judas Priest. I've seen them once live. They're really good live. But another band that should have been a long time ago. They carved a niche for themselves back in their heyday. Pat Benatar is in as well too, and then of course Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, arguably one of the greatest production teams in history of music. Of course, was known for producing Janet Jackson's hits for most of her career. So they deserve to get into this world too. So I think I saw Harry Belafonte get in as well too. But yeah. So that will do it for this episode of Earnestly Podcast. Again, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. So I hope you guys have a good weekend. Looking for all the other episodes coming down here at the pike. I'm in the paint. I'm recording tonight or tomorrow or whatever. And of course, on Take the Wrestling, of course, we do a WrestleMania Backlash preview. So got a lot going on here. I'm very active here on the podcast these days. The feed is lighting up now. So we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep this daily. The goal is to keep it 20 minutes or less, if not closer to 15 minutes if possible. So, and which I did today. I'm close to 20 minutes, so it's all good. So until then, God bless you guys. Stay up. Be kind to each other. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And we'll talk to you soon. Love you guys. Take care. See ya.